I'm going to show you how to do a CAM file. So we're going to take our part in Inventor that we made, this gigafragulator flange part, whatever that was called. If you click the CAM tab up here, first thing we have to do is go through the setup procedure every single time for computer-aided manufacturing, that's CAM. We have to set it up. So click that, and we get a coordinate system here, this XYZ axes, I should say. And we need to set this on the corner. Right now, this is telling it that the zero place for the milling bit is going to be right in the center of this. That's not very helpful. We want it to tell that 0 is going to be on one of these corners. It makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to say that our 0 in this case is the top of this. And sometimes you might want to zero it to the bottom if you want to cut this piece out of a larger stock, which we're going to do later on when we make this amazing little gift box thing. But for now, when we just simulate this, if you want to have an exact depth going straight down into a part, then we want to zero it from the top. So we need to first say that Z is going in the up direction. So if I click on the stem, not the little pointer, but the stem, and I missed it, stem, and I click this side as the perpendicular side, then it goes perpendicular to that side. So that made Z go up. So just follow that step and you should be good. And I want to have my x-axis actually going along this, along this side here. So if I do the x stem perpendicular to this side, now it's going in this orientation, but it's backwards. So the last thing I need to do is click the arrow on either one of these X or Y, and it'll flip them. So now I have X going to the right, Y going up here, and Z going straight up in this direction. That's what we're looking for. So you may just need to kind of play around with it to sort of adjust them. But again, you click the stem and then the face to get it perpendicular to that. And then if you click these little arrow tips, it just flips them around. So that's kind of how you can adjust these. By just clicking that, it flips them around. But again, we want X to the right, Y in this direction, and Z going straight up and down. And I'm going to start it in this corner. You can make it an isometric view if you click Tool Isometric. Sometimes it adjusts which side it shows you. I'm going to leave it in this orientation because that's how it's going to model it when we actually simulate it. But right now we have our setup piece, our X, Y, and Z. That is the most important thing. Next, let's go to stock, and we're going to do a stock. Stock is basically what is the part that you're starting with. So if I start with a solid chunk that is exactly the size of this model on the screen, then what I have is a relative sized box with no additional stock. You can see right now there's a little bit of extra on the outside. You might start with a stock that's slightly bigger than your part and manufacture all that stuff away. Well, we're going to say no additional stock, and we're going to say we have manufactured the part to begin with that's exactly this size. So that's what we're going to do for this particular project. We hit OK, and now it is set up. So the next thing we want to do is we want to pocket out this pocket right here. So I'm going to click 2D Pocket, and we need to select our tool. So if I go to Tool, you're probably going to need to do a new mill tool. And if we go over to Cutter, I want you to do a 1/2 inch. So set that to 0.5. And it's a flat mill. So you look at your picture, this is flat mill, 0.5 diameter. And it's just going to say up here, diameter, that's that circle with a slash, diameter 1/2 inch flat. So we're going to say OK. And I have a few other tools in here because I've done this, I've practiced this before, but that's what we want. It's a 1/2 inch diameter flat. There are probably some sample libraries in here. We're just going to create ours for now. I'm going to double click that again. I'm going to go back into this tool and edit this one, because I want you to take a look at feeds and speeds also. If you are back in the CNC router, then the CNC router can handle a lot faster speeds. So we're going to set this to 14,000 RPM. That's how fast that thing spins. Because it is spinning faster, it allows a faster cut rate and feed rate. And this one actually has 2 flutes. So we're going to set those default sets. Really all that you needed to change was the cutter to a 1/2 inch flat mill, and the feeds and speeds to 14,000 and 2 flutes. We say OK, and it's saying that it's going to be changing things. We're going to say, do we want to override them with the current tool? Yes, we do. So, and tool change can't be undone, that's fine. All right, so we select that tool, and if the tool is not facing straight up and down on your part, you didn't set your X, Y, and Z correctly. But it looks like I did it perfect because I'm amazing. All right, we're going to click on this pocket down here, the bottom of it. Don't click the size or anything. And now we've chosen that pocket contour. That's what we're going to do. So now we're in the second tab. Let's go to the third tab. And the third tab just talks about retracting height. So once it drills down inside there, how high up does it go as a safe height? Well, currently its safe height clearance is 0.8 inches. That's its clearance height. And its feed height when it starts to go down is 0.2. The defaults are perfect on this. We're going to leave them. Now we're going to go down to passes. This is a really important one. For passes, the step over, that's how far over the mill bit goes for each pass along the way. It can't be more than the thickness of the bit, the diameter of the bit, otherwise you're going to miss it. And this gives you sort of a little illustration for what's going on, if that helps you. But we have it as 0.475. Remember, the bit is 0.5, so it's just slightly smaller. So every time it moves, it's actually cutting almost the exact thickness of that bit. Generally, the safest way to do this is half the thickness of the bit. So I'm going to do a step over 0.25. That's half the thickness of the bit. And I'm going to go to multiple depths. And I need multiple depths. Each time it goes down, it can only go half the thickness of the bit also. So that's also 0.25. We're going to follow the same pattern for every bit we use. So 0.25. And then stock to leave, you can deselect this. You don't want to leave any stock anywhere. There's sometimes when you want to do that. My default is set to 0. Yours may not be. You definitely want to deselect that one. So just double checking, you should have a passes maximum step over as a 1/4 inch and multiple depths as a 1/4 inch also. And the last thing is this tab here, and we don't need to actually do anything with linking, leads and transitions, ramp positions, all of that stuff. So we're going to hit OK, and you can see that it sort of has to go in a circular path down right there. We will simulate that in just a second. Let's do our drill, our holes next. So we're going to hit drill. We need to change this. These are 1/4 inch holes, so we have to have a 1/4 inch tool. So if we were actually doing this part, we'd have to change the bit 3 times. Kind of a pain in the butt when you manually change them. If you have an automatic tool changer, which we do not have, then it makes it a whole lot easier. So I'm going to create a new 1/4 inch tool, new tool. I'm going to set this to 14,000 for a spindle feed, and the flutes on the 1/4 inch tool are 4. And that's in feeds and speeds. Let's go back to cutter. And I want my cutter as a drill. Diameter is 0.25. And it's a flat. We're going to make this a flat because it's a flat in this case. So we're using a 1/4 inch flat or end mill at 14,000 with 4 flutes. So we say OK and select it. And now all we need to do is just click on these holes. And I'm clicking on the side rather than the flat bottom. It will drill it out either way. And so that's the geometry. Let's go to height. And those are all preset the way we want. And cycle, it's just a rapid cut. We click OK, and it simulates those. The last thing we need to do that I want to show you is you can contour, you can trace along an edge and mill that out. So we're going to do a 2D contour. So if I click that one, this little slot is 1/8 of an inch, if you remember from your design. So we're going to go to Tool. We're going to create a new tool, and we're going to set this. Somehow it always goes to feeds and speeds for me. It doesn't for you. Just go to there, and it's 14,000. And we're not actually going to make this. I'm going to say it's a 3 flute. So we'll leave that one. And the cutter is 0.125. That is 1/8. And this one is also a flat mill. So we're going to say OK to that. So we have an 1/8 inch diameter flat. And select U. And now for 2D contour, we can't trace the top edge because then it won't actually cut in there. We actually have to trace this bottom edge inside there. So I'm going to have to click this and rotate it so that I can see this. Oh, there it is. You can see this bottom edge. So it's kind of tricky. Zoom in there a little bit. That's the bottom edge that we want. You got to really be careful you select that. So I click that, and it gives you the orientation. It's going to travel in a clockwise direction. That's great. Yay. Then we click the second one, our retract heights, our defaults are fine for that. I'm going to go back to Tool Isometric, and it automatically resets it there. And the last one is passes. So this one, we can leave the passes here, but we definitely want to change the roughing the multiple depths. That's what we want to change. We don't want this to go all the way down to the deepest run in the first try because we could break the bit. So we want our maximum roughing step down half the diameter of the bit. Half of an eighth is a 16th, which is 0.0625. And if you don't know that, a calculator will tell you 0.625. And then we say, okay. And that's all we need to do for that. So that is going to trace down. And if you look into there, it shows that there looks like there's 1, 2, 3 different passes in there. So now let's simulate this just to make sure it is doing everything we want. If we click on Setup and then Simulate, and then I hit, actually I'm going to hit Stock first. And you can change some of these settings, the colorization, some of those things, and it should look something like this depending on what your settings are. But you hit play, and it will actually show you what would happen in real time. It gives you the amount of time it takes to actually machine this whole thing out for each little sequence we have. And so we pocketed out this, we drill these holes, and we're contouring this, and that is all you need to do. That's all we got.